I can't believe it's been a year. Here we are again on Christ the King Sunday, which punctuates the conclusion of the liturgical year. Our gospel reading on this day includes the scene of Jesus facing trial before Pontius Pilate, the Roman governor of Judea. Pilate expresses curiosity about what kind of king Jesus portends to be. In fairy tales and history books, a king sits on a throne. A king resides in a castle perched high up on a hill, surrounded by a moat for the utmost security for himself and his family. A king has knights and vassals to solidify that protection throughout the land. Kings are powerful. Kings defeat their enemies and consolidate their kingdoms by force. How then does Jesus serve as a king? His authority originates from God, and his kingdom's power is permeated by love, not political expediency or personal greatness. We find Christ the King riding into Jerusalem on a donkey, not a war horse. We discover that his throne is a cross. His crown pierces his scalp with thorns. His movement comes down to sinners and to the world God dearly loves, and then moves his followers out into that same world to proclaim and live the gospel of life with all people. In New Testament times, the religious leaders and their followers knew or thought they knew what kind of king they were looking for. They wanted another David or Solomon. They longed for a king who would turn enemies into footstools. They pined for a king who would march back into Jerusalem with loot and prisoners in tow. They wanted a king who would live in a palace and display the better things of life. They wanted Israel to be great and to be taken back to his glory days again. Jesus, however, came down to earth to reveal a new and special kind of kingship and kingdom. He came down and out to be present on the level of all people. He came not catering to the powerful, but healing the sick. He chose his followers not from the palace-perched hilltops, but from fishing boats along the Sea of Galilee. Now, many religious folk in our culture still see Jesus Christ as king in the same sense that Pilate and the religious authorities of his day understood it. Many still see Jesus the King primarily as an almighty and controlling power. Many still miss the sweeping movement of Jesus toward that which is down and out. Many still play down the essence of the theology of the cross, spoken so well by the American theologian Reinhold Niebuhr, and I quote, "The crux of the cross is its revelation of the fact that the final power of God over humanity is derived from the self-imposed weakness of his love." Theologian Dolores Williams talks about growing up in a small African-American church in the American South. Every Sunday, the minister asked, "Who is Jesus?" sing out the refrain, King of kings and Lord of lords, then the minister would ask the question once more. And little Miss Huff answered from the back of the congregation in a voice almost too raspy to be heard, "Poor little Mary's boy." Again, the minister would ask, "Who is Jesus?" And the choir would sing out again the refrain, King of kings and Lord of lords. Then Miss Huff answered, "Poor little Mary's boy hanging upon the cross." The antiphonal responses went back and forth until it was clear that Christ the King rules in a far different way than the kings of this world. Christ's kingdom is an upside-down kind of kingdom, a different kingdom. It's a kingdom where rulers and subjects alike live to serve and not to be served. It's a kingdom where gentleness and cooperation overcome coercion and competition. It's a kingdom where the power of love surpasses the love for power. It's a kingdom where God's will is done not only up in heaven, but also down upon the earth. It's a kingdom whose authority is for the sake of a courageous ethic of life